Yeah, we're delighted to welcome Robbie Cannon on to the show this morning. He's worked with Tipperary Hurlers, Laois footballers over the last few years and is Shane Lowry's S&C coach. Robbie, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to judge the performance that you give us this morning, or the value of it, by how much the producer, Tommy Rooney, is frantically writing on the Google Doc, because yesterday when Daniel Davey was on chatting about food, he was taking down notes as if he was back in school. So his first point here is avoiding all the fads and cutting through the bullshit. So that's Tommy's line, and he wants to know, how can he become a stronger man in 2022?
First things first is I would advise trying to get some qualified help. So maybe try and get yourself a qualified strength and conditioning coach. If you're going to go a bit more sport specific, you might get yourself a qualified coach in that sport. And what that does is it just gives you a bit of accountability, allows you to set some goals. You'll obviously work on the technique of the movements of what you're going to do, either it's in the gym or the sport. And it just gets you to set some targets for the year ahead, the months ahead.
I think that's interesting, Robbie, because I would have gone to the gym a couple of times this week, and because I've had knee injuries in the past, I know programs to do for that area, and for the legs and stuff like that. Be pretty confident on that. But with regard to other stuff, probably not so much. And you see people who are I'm going to the gym, but they're sort of wandering around, just sort of picking up things and drifting around. And I'm guessing what you're saying is they're probably not going to get the benefit of that experience without necessarily having some kind of clear focus.
Yeah, even myself, I set myself programs, and I've done one now for the last kind of 14 weeks, and it's probably the strongest I've been in years. So everyone, if they actually get their own program, it's going to be specific to themselves. They don't have to go in and see the trainer 2 or 3 times a week. They can actually go in and get one session with them and say, okay, I'll come back in 4 weeks, or I'll come back in 6 weeks. Yeah, you're right. People go into the gym and they don't know what they're doing, and they might see something online. Like, social media has its benefits, but then again, it has its negatives when it comes to the gym training, and people just try and pick exercise that look cool on Instagram.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a trainer who's giving you a proper program that's actually specific to you, because some people could be very strong in their upper body and they could be weak in their lower body. What people tend to do is they tend to do the things that they're good at. And as a result, they get even stronger in their stronger part and weaker in their weaker part. So just getting a proper qualified trainer that will actually identify your weaknesses and actually get you a program that will actually get you stronger.
And another point on that, Robbie, when I started in the gym years ago for a brief period, I was on one particular machine. I think it was for strengthening the muscles in your legs. I was doing about 3 things wrong on that individual machine, it turned out, and I ended up getting back problems from it. And I think that's an important point as well. If you're a rookie in the gym, get people to tell you how to do things properly. That's why an S&C coach will be able to how to actually do the machines as well, and how to do your weights properly.
Yeah, sure. If you're going to the dentist, you don't go and see the nurses in the office, you know what I mean? You go in and get to see the dentist. So if you're going into do strength and conditioning, you should be going to a qualified strength and conditioning coach. And especially if you're messing up on a machine, machines are actually the easiest thing you can do. So you must have been doing something really bad to hurt your back.
Robbie's not too sympathetic to you here.
Sorry, Robbie, what's your number there?
were you facing the wrong way? I'm trying to figure out what you were doing.
Yeah, too much weight on, too many reps, just for example.
Okay.
And my body, I was developing, and that's there's nothing worse than if you think you're doing well, and it's no pain, no gain in the gym, but you're actually causing problems. But on the flip side, Robbie, it can do massive help to your self-esteem, and you will see in the gym that in a fairly short space of time you will notice the difference.
Yeah, if you get the right coach who shows a bit of an interest in you and who sets you a proper program that is periodized, where you get stronger every week. And you touched on it there. Some people, the ego can get in the way, and all of a sudden they're starting to lift heavier weights. And then they break down, to get injured, and then that kind of sets them back. I hurt myself in the gym, and it kind of gives a negative kind of feel on going to the gym. So if you get a proper program that's increasing up every week, not too crazy on the weights, it just long term it'll work out better for you in the long term, and you'll stick with it.
You can contact Robbie on his website at cannonperformance.ie or Instagram, Twitter for more information as well. Just the usefulness of a training diary as well, writing down what you're doing the next day. For example, You can, obviously, you mentioned like Instagram and so on and so forth. You can take photos of yourself and track that progress. But that is important, isn't it? Because it's motivation that this is working.
Yeah, there's a saying that I love, what gets written gets done. So if you're planning out what you're doing the next day, like in all areas of life, but especially in the gym, if you have your program, you're writing down, like, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Then when you go back to your diary and tick that off and put in the weights that you're after lifting that day, that gives you a nice bit of satisfaction that I've actually achieved something with the session. And then also you can look back, if you're still with it going well in 3-6 months, you can look back and look, okay, 6th of January, Jesus, I was doing like a goblet squat 5 kilos and now I'm back squatting 80 kilos. That's like, again, that's a huge boost to your confidence and just gives you recognition of the work that you've done. So like, I'm a big fan, and something that I always tell my clients is get yourself a training diary, just a training diary only. And also when you go into the gym, sometimes you're kind of thinking to yourself, Jesus, what weight was I lifting last week? You have your diary there, you can open up, oh yeah, I was doing 20 kg on that one. So it's a couple of benefits of having a training diary.
Yeah, just even on the area like S&C, like where would you be on setting targets for your clients, Rob? Because some people just get obsessed with something like, say, losing weight, right? Like that's it. They just decide that's what they want to do. And it may not necessarily be what they need to do in some cases. You know, they may need to just develop like their muscle strength or whatever it might be. Like, how are you in terms of your clients or people who are out there now at the start of January who just decide, I want to lose this by this? Like, would you operate that way or would you take a different approach to it?
Yeah, so every new client that comes into the gym, we obviously start off with a light kind of warm up on the bike or on the treadmill or something. And the first question I ask them is, why are you here? Because obviously they're coming in, they're taking time out of their busy schedule. They're obviously going to be paying me some hard-earned cash that they've earned. And I always say, why are you here? And generally, if they're serious about what they're doing, they'll tell you the honest reason. And sometimes it's people, they just want to get better at their golf. They want to get themselves more mobility. Some people want to get stronger. Some people want to get faster for football. Some people want to obviously lose a little bit of weight. So generally, they will tell you what their goals, if they're being honest. And like, if you're starting a new program, you have to be honest with yourself and actually list out the 2 or 3 things that you want to achieve from it. And if you are honest with yourself and you put the work in, you will achieve them goals.
In terms of you mentioned like squatting as well, in terms of physical exercise, and something that I've referenced a bit in terms of working from home and the pitfalls that can entail. And this is a relatively new thing for a lot of people over the last 2 years, but a lot of people are now kind of sitting down much of the day. They're not really doing kind of proper things in terms of just their working environment. And I imagine if you go to the gym and you get into programs, you can kind of do an awful lot of good for yourself and maybe prevent stuff happening down the line that'll screw you over.
Yeah, 100%. Again, if you're not, if you haven't gone to a proper professional to get a proper program, that's just obviously going to open up the possibility of hurting yourself, especially if you're not 100% on your technique. So I'd always make sure that your technique is 100% on every exercise you're doing. But again, like if people are a little bit more sedentary now, sitting at a desk from working from home, like one kind of thing that I've done with a lot of my clients the last couple of years is like mindfulness and meditation has been quite popular the last 4 or 5 years. And I've been advising my clients that they maybe take 5 or 10 minutes out mid-morning or mid-afternoon, and instead of meditating, they just go down and do some mobility work. They can still meditate when they're down doing their mobility work, but like, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from that. And it's just like 2 or 3 exercises, just gets their body a little bit looser. They feel a lot better about it, a little bit of breathing. If they've had a stressful morning or stressful afternoon, it can calm them on that as well. So a little bit of mobility is always great with correct breathing.
Ultimately, we want to know, how can you turn Dan into Dan Do? Like, what advice for Dan to turn into, a muscle man here on the show?
Yeah, so if I was going to list off 3 things, I'd say obviously get yourself a qualified trainer. If Dan wants to come in here, I'd look after him very well.
Good rate.
I've just moved to Marino, so
they're easy. Lives right beside that. That's perfect.
I live down the road.
This is a match made in heaven.
I'm
See
really
you around 10
excited
o'clock.
about
Yeah.
Really excited about Damien Duff now, so I can walk to Talca Park. So I think I'll start supporting them for this year.
Forget about Damien Duff, right? How do we get Dan in shape? Come on, Robbie.
So obviously we'll get him a proper program, get him assessed, go through technique, obviously get his goals set out, and then we'll try and get him to keep a diary of what he's been doing. And obviously what Daniel was saying yesterday on the food, that's quite important, to keep track of your food and how that's going. and then having another kind of checkup every kind of 4 to 6 weeks just to make sure that we're achieving the progress that we want. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the individual themselves. And what I've found has worked for a lot of people is if they're consistent, if they're getting their consistent 3-4 sessions a week, that's what yields results.
Because I remember Darren Clark when he was talking about his own. Obviously, you're involved with Shane Lowry. I remember Darren Clark talking about he developed a gym regime, and it always stuck with me. You don't need to be in there for 2 hours. Like, you could be in the gym for half an hour and do an awful lot of good work.
Yeah, actually, I have a good story about Darren. I used to do a little bit of work for his golf school about 10 years ago. And he came in after he won the Open. And one thing that he did talk to all the students, there was 40 students there. And one thing that always stuck with me was he said he started working with a new sports psychologist. And the sports psychologist wanted him every evening to write down 3 things that he was going to do the next day that were going to help his golf. So one of them could have been like practicing on his wedges 100 yards for 2 hours. The next thing was a gym session for an hour. The next thing could have been reading a psychology book for half an hour. And he ticked them off. And he felt like them little victories each day added up to the big victory win in the Open. So again, that goes back to the diary and the journal. So the nice little tip there that Darren said that day.
And like you mentioned there that like different clients come to you, and you're working with Shane Lowry at the moment. Like, would you have people like who are, say, golfers coming to you, even like recreational golfers, or just, there's a traditional view that used to exist that didn't belong in golf. It just wasn't a thing that belonged in that sport, and clearly that mentality has changed dramatically over the last 2 decades. But are you seeing that even with sort of the layman, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I've worked with Shane since 2015, and like I guess I've worked with golfers probably all my career in strength and conditioning. Obviously, I play golf to high level myself, so I probably have a little bit of kind of exposure to golf in that way. But yeah, I'll work with anybody who wants to get better, and it's not just golfers. It's I've worked with GA the last 4 years as well, so I have a lot of GA athletes coming into me working on their speed and strength and power. But yeah, anybody that wants to get better, I'll work with them. That's a key thought.
It is like they say about Colin Healy, who's one of the guests on the show, and it's a bit like Roy Keane. They kind of have these eyes that, like, once they look at you, you just want to kind of you want to please them. You want to do. Robbie kind of has that look as well. If he were my S&C coach, I'd be like, Robbie, I can't let you down.
Because Johnny did say earlier your gym days were behind you.
Yeah.
You're literally in a protective boot at the moment. Which, like, how are you going to get from protective boot Johnny to healthy Johnny again? It feels like Robbie is your ticket.
Over to Robbie.
Yeah, over to Marino. Maybe.
So I expect to see Johnny and Dan now in the next week, I'd say.
Well, I've in fairness, like, I've a gym right beside me, but I suppose in a serious point, like, both of us turned 40 this year. Do people get turned off by the fact that, listen, I'm not able to do what I would have been able to do when I was in my mid-20s? Like, what's the point going to the gym in my late 30s, for example?
Well, I had a fella come in to me about 6-7 years ago. He was 65 years of age and first time starting a gym program. Within a year, he got to 2 club championship finals. Now, he was beaten in both the finals, but he still comes in, trains with me. He looks probably 15 years younger than when he first came in. And he said this year is the best golf he's ever played. And so you're never too late. I actually think that when you get older, it's more important to be actually doing exercises. So there you go.
I think that's phenomenal.
Oh, listen, I'd be a big believer in that as well. I think some people, they only actually grasp that when they get a bit older. And they actually wish that they'd minded themselves a bit more in their 20s to actually prolong their sporting career, because that's the thing. Like, we talk about this now, like, we like to play a bit of five-a-side or whatever, and I generally find myself playing now with like lads who are a good bit younger, and you get a little bit more conscious about your age, you get a little bit more paranoid about it. So you actually, it's funny, like, you have that realisation when it almost you feel like it's too late, but it's not. It's definitely not too late.
So much of it is mental, Robbie, as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. But then again, you have the positive endorphins from after doing a great session. Like, there's no feeling like it. And yeah, like the longer you leave it, the harder it gets. But once you get back at it and you have that consistency, like moving great, it just will. Like, there's people go on about cardiovascular health and how important it is for longevity in life. But there was a really good long study there a couple of years ago about the amount of muscle that you have in your body is just as important as cardiovascular health.
Do you know?
So
yeah. I had actually a debate with a doctor about this yesterday. It was just about somebody who told me he'd been prescribed antidepressants, and I was completely blown away by it because it didn't fit what I thought was his situation at all. And I'm obviously not in any way qualified to say this, but I did find, as you mentioned there, if you do a good session in the gym and you go for your shower afterwards, the high that you get there is actually hard to quantify, and it's hard to relate to anything else. Even sometimes cardio wouldn't give you that buzz.
Definitely not. No, it's just like it's one thing that a lot of people say to me. They just feel so great about after doing a really good session, especially if they haven't done it for a while. The first couple of sessions are hard, but then once they get into it, and maybe the third or fourth session, they're starting to feel the benefits. They may start to look a little bit better in the mirror, just feel better about themselves. Like it makes you feel like a foot taller. It really does. That's one thing that's been quite consistent with people's feedback over the years to me.
And just finally, Shane's off to America, then he's off to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. I'm reading this because, unlike Dan, I'm not into golf. But how are things with the Lowry man?
Yeah, he's all good. Actually, he's heading back to America now in the next couple of days. So then he's heading back then, obviously, to Abu Dhabi to start off the 2022 season. So yeah, he's in good form. He's looking forward to the season ahead. He had a great season last year, very consistent in the majors, just proving that he's such a major player. And I know he's very excited and looking forward to the new season.
And finally, those with kind of voyeuristic, or even I would say voyeuristic, maybe voyeuristic might be the word, voyeuristic qualities, and they want to see Dan and you in a session, where do they go?
I'm based in Morton Stadium in Santry, and you can follow me on social media there as well. So anyone that wants to get in touch, happy to help. Once they want to get better.
Absolutely, and it's only the 6th of January. If you haven't started yet, Robbie, there's loads of time.
Oh yeah, loads of time.
Happy New Year to you.
Same to you. Cheers.
Thanks, Robbie.
See you.
Bye-bye. Is this going to happen, Dan? Are you going? I mean, Marino, like,
down the road
couldn't be closer. He mentioned Damien Duff as well. He obviously is into football.
But you're easily won over. Like he's mentioned a League of Ireland reference, and you're like, I want.
Yeah, I am.
You're easily won over. Voyeuristic qualities is like a bit of an oxymoron, really, in some ways, isn't it? Could voyeurism be? Yeah. Could you say that someone has a bit of quality in the area of voyeurism? Probably not something that would be advisable.